Even Mix of both? Both? Okay. All right. So in the association, there are a few key things that you should have on every single agenda. I'm still sleepy. So first and foremost, the date and location of the meeting. This is just so that everybody knows what's going on, where it's happening. The expected attendance of members. This is basically the roster, right? At the beginning of the agenda, you should have a list of the members that should attend. This does not count, public forum. Honestly, if you want to have non-voting members in there, that's fine too. Your advisor can or cannot be on there. Space for public forum, there it is. Somewhere on the agenda, you should allow space for people who are not part of your board to come in and talk. Because we're an open and transparent association, anybody is more than welcome to come to any of the board meetings to come and talk, unless it is a closed session. Asterisk, asterisk. Topics to cover, a list of all the things to cover, plus a time limit on each. This is a quick little tip. If you guys have a time constraint, you guys should have a rough idea of how much and how long a topic should last. Let's say if we're talking about funding for a project, you guys have it mostly figured out already, just pass it. That should take what, 2 to 5 minutes? But if it's something a little more controversial, maybe it'll take 15 to 20 minutes. You guys should have the time limit on there so that you guys can basically budget out your time for your meeting as a whole. Any other important information? This is just a miscellaneous thing. So if you have some kind of special circumstance, if it's on, Zoom and you provide a Zoom link, all of that important stuff goes under that category. Projected adjournment time. You want to respect everyone's time. You don't want it to go over. You don't want it to drag on. So you should have a set time as to when it will end. So everybody's on the same page. Everybody has the same expectation.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about email votes. So email votes have a similar foundation in that we really recommend that you create an agenda the same way as David mentioned before. So you kind of use the same template, put all that together. But unlike being able to convene a meeting in person or over Zoom, email vote usually is reserved for urgent, emergency, really kind of limited in scope to last minute kind of items. And the reason for that really is that, again, so that the public can participate if they would like to, all the board members can participate. We kind of place a value of discussion over what could potentially be a more efficient system of taking an email vote. And so we recommend both, not only that you create the agenda the same way, you send it out to all the same people, but that we highly, highly, highly recommend using either a Google form or Slack. Those are AS approved communication methods. We are a public institution and our documents are subject to public records requests. So we don't love it when people's personal phones, personal emails, personal whatever, WhatsApp, WeChat, whatever it may be, gets subpoenaed. It has happened. We don't love when that happens. So highly, highly recommend using all AS approved communication channels. And also Google Forms just makes it easier. You can input all the questions. There should be a sufficient amount of time for people to cast their vote. We don't leave it open for 15 minutes. 24 hours would be great. I've seen some smaller boards that they can get it done in 8 to 12 hours. I think if you have a full board participating, you don't need to leave it open for no reason, but giving everybody enough time to cast their vote is really important. And then when you're crafting the results of that email vote, that will essentially be your minute. So you'll want to make sure that it has all the motions, who cast what vote, and then the time that the email vote was adjourned. But you'll start from the same foundation of crafting the agenda, sending it out to everyone, and compiling the data at the end. Okay. So speaking of taking minutes, so meetings are essentially, or minutes rather, are essentially the only record we have of what occurred in these meetings once the meeting has ended. So if you've ever opened up any AS minutes and you're like, how did this get approved? Or sometimes if you've seen any Senate minutes and you're interested in a piece of legislation and then it's just voted yes or voted no, and you're like, what happened? Why did this group arrive at this decision? We can have similar questions, both as advisors. Our FinOps team can have. People come to me often wanting to review historical documents. And so they're oh, well, I heard that this entity did this project 5 years ago. Can you help me find out more information? And many times we come across minutes that are just motion happened, done. So we really encourage a little bit more information and dialogue to be contained in those minutes. It doesn't need to be a transcript. We do have AI tools now, depending on how you feel about them. that can provide some of those transcripts if you prefer to do that. But it doesn't need to be word for word. It just needs to contain really the essence of what occurred. So if you can add who is making comments in favor or against, if we can have any sort of context at all, that is super helpful. Also, at the bare minimum, what needs to be included in the minutes are things like who was at the meeting, what motions were made, what the votes were. We should also, yeah, any references to the motion language needs to be included. And then once your minutes are done, your board should review them. Everybody make sure that they're accurate and good to go. As a board, you approve them, and then they get to Senate for ratification. And then they essentially wind up being archived. So that's when people come to me and they're like, can you help me find IVTU's minutes from 10 years ago because they worked on a landlord tenant issue that I want to revive or something. So those kinds of things are also really helpful. It honestly happens more than you think. So including kind of all the basics plus any detailed information is super helpful.
Like Holly said, there are a lot of AI tools now that can give you a transcript, but it is striking a balance between how detailed you want to be and how much time and ability you have. If you're just typing, obviously we don't expect word for word.
Yeah.
But at the very least, you should have, what topics are being discussed, and at the very, very least, what are the next steps, right? What did you guys decide? What came out of the discussion? And what's for next week or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, probably also setting the tone or expectation early on for AI tools probably would be helpful. There's some people probably that aren't super comfortable with having everything spoken in a meeting being transcribed. So kind of coming to that expectation agreement. Similar if you do any hybrid meetings or Zoom meetings with the chat. There's not really anything in legal code per se as far as policy goes, but just from what I've seen in practice, being clear, like if you type anything in the chat, we all agree it's going into the minutes, or we agree that it's not. But I think similar for AI tools also, because that may affect some people's participation, and that may be a reason why you choose not to use it, and that's totally fine.
Speaking of setting the tone, some facilitation skills. On about setting the tone. When you start with facilitating a meeting, you should always try your best to meet in person. Meeting over Zoom is easy, it's convenient, we're very used to it, but you miss out on a lot of the key body languages, the subtle subtext, and you're just not as engaged. I think we all know that, and we've all experienced that before. So try your best to make it in person, make it happen. When you do have it in person, choose a location that is accessible. If I live in Montecito and I want to have the meeting in Montecito, I don't think that's accessible to most people, right? I've seen it happen before where people try to say, oh, we have the meeting as open to everyone, but they have it in such a weird, obscure location that it's really only accessible to like these few people, and they try to push some things through that way. So make it transparent, make it open. Bartle Center is a great place. The community center down in IV is a great place. Anywhere on campus is great and approved. Yeah, just make sure you guys aren't trying to bias your meetings for a specific group or a specific agenda by choosing the wrong location.
Yeah.
The layout of the meeting room is important. Right now, there's a clear hierarchy. We're the presenters, we're facing you guys, and that gives us, there is implicit bias there about who has more power and who has more importance. The bad example is I gave the US Senate, where they have like that little central place in the front, and then everybody else is spread out in the back. Some more medium examples is what we have right now, which is a compromise. We can't have a semicircle or a circle in AS, which is like the most equal. It's a little overkill. But having, if you've ever taken a look at the Senate meetings or the Finance Committee meetings, where it's a kind of like a bucket shape that's kind of down here and this way, that gives you as much equal access to everybody else as possible, where you guys can see each other, you guys can recognize each other, and you guys can talk to each other face to face and look them in the eyes. Make sure the dress code is clearly communicated. If I showed up in a suit and Holly showed up in PJs, that looks weird, right? There's going to be some awkwardness there. Make sure everybody is clear as to what is to wear. Business casual is always a good place to start. If you guys want it to be more casual, feel free to. If you guys all want to show up in suits for whatever reason, go for it. But make sure that it is clearly communicated and everybody knows the expectation. Welcome and respect all members equally without bias. I should not have to explain this one. Next slide. Let's talk about time. I said earlier that time is important and we should all have the same expectation to it. It is our most valuable currency and we should make sure that meetings start on the dot. If you guys say we need to start at 4 p.m., we start at 4 p.m. If you're late, you're late, right? Just because you had something, it's, life happens, right? But you guys should communicate that as clearly and as early as possible, and we can work things out from there. Meetings should last an hour at most. This is kind of a rule of thumb, but if you see Senate meetings running, until 3 or 4 a.m., sometimes there's a good reason for it, most of the times not. So make sure that you guys have things ready to go. You guys aren't, fumbling for things and dragging things on during the meeting. It should be optimized, it should be efficient. If you guys feel like it's being dragged on and on and on and you guys would like to leave, there should be a clear expectation that you can leave at any time after the 1 hour or whatever the set time is up. If you guys wanted to continue, make a motion for it, right? Everything in association is about motions and consensus. So make a motion to either stop the meeting, to start to keep the meeting going, or to, have a 12-hour recess and reconvene tomorrow. That's all good, but make sure everybody clearly understands the expectation of time. Yes, next slide. Next slide.
Okay.
Choose when to meet carefully. Fridays are a bad time. Weekends are a bad time. A lot of the times we see meetings happening closer to the evening because you guys are still students first and foremost. This is kind of like a side gig for you guys. Make sure your academics are in order. And for that to happen, you guys have classes. And classes, get in the way of almost everything else. So choose and be mindful of when you start. Have a when to meet. Have a let us meet. Make sure that everybody is okay with the time. Don't try to schedule, a meeting when somebody else has class to exclude them. Again, be mindful of everyone's time. You guys shouldn't have one person who is kind of macho there and trying to speak and talk over everyone. Try to have everybody speak evenly. Give, 2 minutes is a good rule of thumb to start as to how long people should talk before they should be cut off and moved on to the next person. Stay on topic. When things come up, you guys will find that all these side things start showing up. Oh, we need to talk about this. Oh, this needs to be decided before we can get back onto the first thing. Stay on topic. If it needs a bigger discussion, add it to the agenda as a separate item or reserve it for some other time. But make sure that you guys are not broadening the scope so much that the meeting is going on and on and on, which is what happens a lot in Senates.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
That falls into the
Yeah.
category of is it needed?
Last but not least, focus on what's happening in the meeting. Don't try to do your homework. Don't try to do some other work in it. Focus and pay attention. Because a lot of times we see what happens is people are doing something else and they're called upon and they're like, wait, what? What's happening? Can you repeat that, please? And that delays it. It's not too long, but it adds up if everybody does it over and over again.
Probably also feels respectful to the speakers to feel like there is equal engagement,
Exactly. Participation. Participation should happen equally within a reasonable time frame. You guys should not have, just one member who's just there quiet and just shows up and leaves and doesn't give input. Everybody's there for a reason. Everybody should have a say in what's happening. And if you feel like there's some interpersonal issues or some kind of dynamic that is preventing people from being open and having easy access to the speaking floor, talk to them in private. If you're a chair, it's your responsibility to make sure that your committee is well and healthy. If you feel like it's out of your hands, talk to your advisor, talk to somebody from AS admin. You guys are students, you guys have resources, but don't let it brew because that is what kills a committee for the year.
Yeah. And advisors surprisingly do navigate a lot of challenging conversations. So we don't mind being mediators. I do it all the time. So it really is not a daunting ask if it feels that way.
Exactly.
We've had to learn how to de-escalate trial by fire.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want the next slide?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay.
Team bonding in this situation will help a lot. If you know your team just outside of the meetings and you see them more as like human beings and friends or acquaintances other than just, oh, another member of this committee that I'm part of, it'll help smooth things out a lot. A meeting is only as cohesive and productive as the team using it. If you guys are all on opposite sides and you guys have some personal issues with each other, you're not going to get anything done. It's useless, right? It's important to know your team beyond the weekly meetings so that you guys have something to bond over and you guys are cohesive and you guys can work well together. Regular manners. I hate to say it, but I see a lot of people not saying please or thank you to other people for whatever reason, and they just kind of ignore them. Regular manners go a long way. It's small, but it goes a long way. Relaxation sessions and retreats. Retreats are very common. They happen almost once a quarter. Use this time as an educational retreat to bond with your team. Don't just say, oh, we want to go bowling, let's go bowling, and you form into small cliques and groups and do your own thing. Try and make an effort. It's going to be uncomfortable at first. Try and make an effort to get your team together, get a cohesive, start making people talk to people that they don't usually talk to, and have it so that by the end of it, everyone knows a little bit more about each other. Remember workshops. This is taken directly out of IVCRC's idea, which is we all have skills outside of what we do in AS. Teach them. You get to learn something new and you get to bond with another member. Have that member say, oh, I may be the treasurer, but I'm also really, I have a real estate license. I can teach you guys about mortgages and real estate or something like that. And have a little workshop and retreat there where you guys bring food and you guys learn a little bit and you guys bond over it.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think a really special part of being a part of a board and associated students is really the sense of belonging and the shared vision and the way that we use the resources and team built power really to kind of engage in advocacy. So I think even team bonding exercises that we can really focus on that shared vision about where you want to go as a board, really what is the capacity of everybody on that board. If you all as a board are a car, is everybody wanting to head in the same direction? Do we agree on the method by which we're getting to that direction? So team bonding can really help it not be, because really you all have limited time. You have one academic term, you all have personal lives, you have academic lives, social lives, all the things. This is a really transformational experience in this time of your life. And really we can't as humans even just do everything that we want to do. So being able to kind of identify the shared vision and be able to narrow your focus to really what is feasible and sustainable to do can really help with being on the same page also as a group.
With that being said, the end goal of all of our meetings here in AS, decisions. Decisions should be made by everyone in the group. All too often, we see the same same 4 people making motions, seconding them, saying aye, agreeing to them. Have it go around, you should not have the same 3 people make the motions all the time. That creates a dynamic and that will seed and linger in your group for the rest of the year. As the chair of the meeting, you have the power to not recognize someone. If somebody wants to speak or make a motion, you don't have to. You can give it a few seconds, wait and let other people who may be a little more shy come up and say, hey, I want to make this motion instead. And yeah, passing of motions come in many forms, but quorum is required. Everything in AS is about quorum. You need to have a majority. If you have 4 out of 10 people there, you can't make a motion. Try an email vote later, but you need to have at least 50 plus 1 or greater than 50, basically. Consensus is the most common type of motion that we pass here in AS, which is just somebody makes a motion, somebody seconds it, and it is unanimous. Consensus here means unanimous consensus, so everybody says aye, everybody says yes, nobody has an objection to it. But if there is an objection, we go to majority. Majority is here where, we call upon people, we do hand votes, if we need to, secret ballots, so names aren't being released. And this is not too common, but more common in Senate.
Yeah, I would say in Senate, yeah. It's fairly common. And I think because that type of environment, I think is a little more ripe for disagreements, I would say, or dissent in general. So hopefully also the takeaway for boards is that you don't necessarily have to just go along with the rest of the board thinks with or agrees or wants to do in terms of consensus. There are systems in place for you to vote no on something if you really disagree with it. And I mean, ultimately, as a board, you are responsible collectively for the decisions that are made. So there are mechanisms in place. So if you feel awkward about it, we can talk you through the process. But I would argue because of the smaller setting, it probably doesn't happen as much in boards because you all talk through and are able to reach a decision. But if you attend any Senate meetings or watch any of our live streams, you will see that there are often contentious votes that happen.
Very contentious.
Yeah.
Very contentious. So let's talk about some decision-making models here, that we see a lot in AS. One of them is individual top-down. Basically, this is for time-sensitive ones where you as the chair or, meeting facilitator, you have to make a decision right away. A lot of times, you don't have time to ask the rest of your committee for, help or for questions, and you just need to go, make something, and it's very likely that, they'll say yes. The example here is that the chair of the meeting moved location due to a scheduling conflict at the venue. We see that happening a lot at the U Center for some reason. Last year, Finance Committee was supposed to meet in the U Center, but some scheduling error made it so that we had to move to a different location. And our chair back then decided without everyone else that we just kind of follow along because what else are we supposed to do? The more common one is individual bottom up for where chairs make, or let's just say chairs or whoever makes the decision with the input for the rest of the committee. This is the one that you'll see the most often. An example I can give is if you delegate or if a member of your committee is doing a project, but during the meeting, they come to the rest of the committee to get feedback and to revise their plan and to make it better. That is individual bottom up. Consensus agreements. This is the most common that we see when we talk about AS doing final decisions, aka motions. This is very similar to the consensus agreements on making motions. This requires the consent of the committee as a whole. So when you want to pass funding for a project, when you want to support something, this is a model by which motions are being made. Consensus with fallback. This is basically a little foundation to build upon consensuses. So, for example, a committee needs to purchase compostable plates, for an event. They know that Zero Waste, which is one of our BCUs in the association, has and can provide that service, but you might be able to find something cheaper on Amazon. So the decision here would be to delegate it to somebody to research on Amazon. And if you can't, automatically fall back to the Zero Waste Committee. Yeah. Next slide.
I think we just have a couple more and then we'll open for Q&A if anybody has any, but.
Delegation.
Yeah.
This is more common in AS Senate, where they delegate tasks and knowledge to subcommittees. The big example is Finance Committee, where they delegate all the financial procedures and the decisions to that committee, so they don't take up their precious time. You can do this in your own your BCUs and your committees as well, where you have a subgroup of your committee dedicated to solving one specific problem. I'll just say that much for this.
Okay.
I know we're a little short on time here.
That's okay.
You want to take this or do you want me to?
Sure. Disagreements are inevitable. If you have been, or if you were at our earlier session with Marissa, talking about the leadership inventory, her and I tend to be in the camp of we think that disagreements really is where the work can be. I think that dissent is a really important part of engaging in the association, the feedback process in general. So I personally don't shy away from dissent or disagreement. And I think that it's bound to happen in our groups. It happens in Senate all the time. It happens in BCU meetings. I think there is a balance, of course, in doing so in a professional way. And I know that professional can mean different things to different people, but keeping it to the work itself. So being able, and we're going to talk a little bit more about handling disagreements tomorrow. If you come back with us, we have Lana Smith-Hale from the Office of the Ombuds. So she can talk about some of these tools, right? Like using I statements, not speaking about somebody's personal character, right? If you disagree with a decision, it's not that that person or is horrible, but we can, talk through the decision making. So we are bigger fans of de-escalation rather than escalating conflict, because really our purpose here is the shared mission, and that's both in boards and in the association at large. So if this is something that feels uncomfortable to you, like David mentioned earlier, that's something you can tap an advisor for. There may be more experienced board members that feel comfortable doing that. Maybe you just want a third party in general. I mean, there are campus resources at large, so if you don't feel comfortable with one of our advisors or you just don't know who to go to, there are plenty of like formal resources also. But we are big on de-escalating where possible and seeking to understand is a principle and value that we really hold. And also not avoiding any issues. I think that it's totally fair that every person has a different way that they process information, that they process conflict or tension or stress, totally fine. What we want to avoid doing is getting into a habit of avoidance, because then there's tension, there can be resentment, there can be issues. And my mom used to say this, everything is fixable. And so we can work through whatever issue that comes up. It just may take a little more time and a little more investment and a little more relationship building to arrive at a point where everybody feels more comfortable.
In the context of a meeting, table it. Table it for more discussion offline after the meeting so it doesn't drag on, and you can have time to simmer it down, de-escalate it before you go back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have at the end of the slide here, at the end of the day, if it is a disagreement about a specific business item, really at the end of the day, the goal is to reach a vote. So that can sometimes help kind of de-escalate conflict so that things aren't just holding forever. Okay.
Keep doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So we
I
talked,
think that's
a lot of things talked about throughout the meeting, but throughout the presentation, but let's just go over them once again. Keeping discussions on track. Scope creep is way too often. If you are the facilitator and you're managing the meeting, make sure you call it out. It's okay to let it drag on a little bit if it returns back to the point that they're trying to make. But if you notice it, feel empowered and feel responsible to call them out, interrupt them, and say, "Hey, it looks like we're getting off track. Let's get back on track." I've done this to people who are more senior than me, and it never got me in trouble. I hope.
No,
I hope.
I was like, I'm not in charge of you, so not with me.
Yeah, so redirect the conversation as much as you can back. If the conversation is moving in a circle and you're going back to the same 3-4 points over and over again, try your best to summarize it. And if you see a path forward, create it. If not, table it. This just shows that there's a lot of disagreements and people don't understand what the issue is at the heart of the problem, and you need more time outside of this meeting to fix it. If you have preset time limits, use that as a guideline. If you need an excuse for anything, just say, "Oh, we preset 5 minutes for this. It's been over 5 minutes. We need more time. Table it. We'll go to the next thing." Managing side conversations, call them out. Call them out. If you feel like people are being disrespectful to the speaker, if you feel like there's little huddles and side conversations here and there, say, "Guys, listen, focus back up and keep going. Don't be afraid to call them out." It's not public shaming, but it's acknowledging that there's a problem and they need to fix it. Dealing with no-shows or unprepared members. It's an unfortunate reality that life happens, and also sometimes people just don't show up, whether it's intentional or not. You should have a clear attendance policy. Back in IBCRC, we had an attendance policy where if you had unexcused absences, you got your honoraria deducted. Have an incentive to go, whether it's food, whether it's honoraria, or whatever else. Make every possible step easy and convincing and motivated for them to come to the meeting. If you do, I know we didn't talk about proxies a lot, but if you do have proxies, make sure you have a proxy policy and you have follow-ups with the members who are absent to make sure they're caught up and they are informed as to what's happening next.
So time check, we're at 4:29.
That's perfect, because
Is that our last slide?
that is our last slide.
Okay, great. Okay, so business items, if you attended and you want to track your attendance, QR code, please. And for another minute, 2 minutes, however long it takes us to get back to Corwin, I'm happy to take any questions. Any thoughts? Is this helpful? I'm seeing head
Question over here?
What are some specific strategies you've used to address disengagement at meetings? People not looking at minutes ahead of time, people not discussing, people not making motions and just blindly making consensus without really thinking about what they're voting for.
Got you. I have some ideas. You
Go for it. Go first.
So I think that, when we handle this on the staff side, because I also facilitate meetings for staff, I think what helps is starting earlier on in terms of having buy-in for the crafting of the agenda. Because if they just feel like it's an obligation, they're not involved in the process, they weren't involved in the creation, then it can be disengaging. I also think there's some systems to be set up in place that can help that, right? If you want to no phones at the meeting policy or no computers, Senate will sometimes do that. That can help kind of resist the urge. I mean, I myself, like, I mean, we're in a very like attached to our phone kind of society and culture. So I myself have to resist the urge to constantly be looking at my phone just as a compulsion, I guess. But that would be my advice, is to start further on or further back with kind of building an idea of a shared vision so that people can see themselves in it and where things are going. And with the agenda being crafted, or really you can have a conversation with those members about why they're feeling disengaged, or even if the position on the board is a good fit for them. We are not like kicking anybody off, but just kind of understanding their motivations for the behavior, I think, can better help inform you. And they might decide they want to be in a different board altogether, or they don't really have the time, or there's something personal happening. But coming from a place of curiosity in that conversation, I think, would be my second tip.
You mentioned a good point about kicking people off. We don't like to kick people off.
No, we can't.
But we
actually.
can't, exactly, we can't.
Unless they no show.
Yeah.
If they ghost you, we have a policy.
Yeah.
If you don't like them, we got to work through
Yeah.
it.
If there's a reasonable and like
Yeah.
reason as to
Yeah.
why, you know, they're
Yeah.
doing something bad, we have a way to kick them off.
Yeah.
I don't want to say don't be shy to use it, but like just know that a parasite on your committee hurts you a lot. You know, a no-show on your committee, because they add to quorum. You know, there's somebody else that you have to check in with, whether it's, you know, having them say yes on a email vote, or just saying, hey, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Over and over again. Throughout the year, you'll see that they'll become a bigger headache than it's worth. So have that talk with them, make sure that, you know, they're invested early. And if there is a problem, you know, don't fault them, don't take it personally, but address it.
I think that's good advice, yeah. Also, that excludes any like conduct issues.
Yeah.
So we're coming from a place of like business disagreement, but if somebody is acting in a way that the university would consider to be inappropriate, all of that umbrella of things, that's a whole different side conversation. I don't think that's what you're asking, but we're talking about, you know, board members not participating. Like the university just doesn't tolerate specific behavior, right? Like you can't bully people, you can't like, there's just all sorts of like Title IX covers a lot of different behaviors, anti-discrimination. So all those things are separate. So that is a whole other thing. That goes beyond, we just have disagreements, or maybe not like you personally, but you can't like scream at people, for example. And if you continue or even do it once, university will boot you from the group.
Yeah.
And that will be involved. So this is for like, if we
Professional.
disagree about how to use our funding, or I like the bagel place better than the burrito place, like that we can work through. Inappropriate conduct,
It's a big
no
no.
tolerance.
It's a big no. We've had issues in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is not something that somebody needs to suffer in silence or tolerate, absolutely, so.
Question.
There a certain like required number of meetings per quarter?
There is not.
There's not.
Most groups meet once a week. I think honestly, we either have the issue of boards where almost entire boards are kind of disengaged and they're like, and they wind up not meeting. And then over the years, their access to funding gets dwindled, just because like if you're not using the funding, you're going to lose it, kind of like the finance committee is just not going to keep giving it. Or we have the opposite problem where we have students that are really engaged, and that can sometimes be a risky, unsustainable thing, right? Like you want to be able to balance your entire well-being, like your academic well-being, your personal well-being, your work with AS. Like we really don't want to see students burn out or burn the candle at both ends. So we generally either have student groups that want to meet like a lot and they're very into it. Or there's just kind of general disengagement. So
Once a week is
Yeah.
the good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yes.
We have to send our meeting minutes to anyone.
Yes. So we have a minute's drive. If you need access to that, you can reach out to me. That's my email on the slide there. So we used to have students email it to the IVP. So if you really can't figure it out and you don't remember who I am, then feel free to send that to Henry. It's internal VP at as.ucsb.edu. Or if you just look internal vice president. So we have a minutes drive. There's a folder that I give all new students access to that'll say to be approved. So once your board has approved it, you'll pop it in that drive, the Senate will approve it, and then we archive it from there. So then when you look at the main folder, it'll say to be approved and approved. So if you go open up approved, if you'll scroll through and find your board, you can see we have each academic year in a subfolder. But to have it approved through Senate, you'll need to upload it in that to be approved folder. So
Is it possible to more than one member of the committee to have access to Google Drive?
yes, yeah, whoever wants access to it. Yeah. I would recommend you all are on the same page so that we don't get like 4 copies of it uploaded, but other than that, there's no issue. Yeah. We just don't want like everyone to have access to it because then we wind up with issues of something getting deleted accidentally. And so we want to control who can upload it a little more, but it's not for.
Usually the chairs and the vice chairs.
Yeah.
And if you have a secretary, those are the people who would have access to it.
Yeah. You had another question?
Is it, meeting or quarterly, how often do you update?
After each meeting.
Yeah.
Whenever you have a new minutes to be approved, that's when you upload.
Yeah. Yeah, because then the financial transactions can be fully approved at that point. So kind of in the internal process, right? Like the board has to be appointed, have quorum, meet, have minutes. The board approves the minutes, Senate approves them, and then we can issue payment. So you all are kind of a smaller part of a larger bureaucracy that has a larger bureaucracy and like we're the Russian nesting dolls of bureaucracy. So it can be kind of multi-layered, but yeah, that's kind of where it is in the process is once it's approved by Senate, then we can issue payment. And generally we find that people are wanting to issue payment a little sooner than we have processing time. So any early advance is excellent. Same with minutes. So if that's already in line, then we're good to go.
Question in the back.
Required to submit meeting minutes for every meeting or just meetings where we want financial transactions?
Oh, I was afraid this question was gonna come up.
I would argue yes. Because I think that if there's any discussions that the board are having, that's a part of the public record. I personally advise against the informal meetings. I don't find that to be in alignment with like democratic and transparent practices personally. So I would advise my students against that. But it's not to say that like nobody will, well, even then, like, because if you run into somebody and you have a conversation about it, then it's like, well, who doesn't have a seat at the table? And like, is it more important for them to be involved or do we value the convenience of it? And I personally, as a system, would lean more towards the access. So I would say yes.
Yeah, so if you ever have a chance to read through legal code, you'll realize that there is no requirement for you to have minutes. There's no legal requirement in the Association of Legal Code for you to have minutes. For things to be approved and to, financial approvals, for ratifications of legislation, if you want to support something, for those kind of motions, yes, you need to have minutes. But outside of those, there's no formal requirement. However, I would recommend, like Holly said, to always have minutes. It's a digital archive and it is, a record of what you did so that we have a track record and can give you potentially more money in the next fiscal year.
Absolutely.
A follow-up.
Mhm.
In terms of the sessions, do we have to provide details about what we're talking about?
Yes, that is called the Brown Act. In closed session, you can make a motion to go into closed session, but when you exit closed session, you need to make a motion to enter into the record a summary of what was talked about. You don't have to need the specifics, but you need at least a summary of what was talked about in the closed session.
Also, I'm super sorry to everyone. We have another session starting in a minute.
Yep.
Wait, no, hold on. Did I read that correctly? Yes, at 4:40.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna run. My contact information was up there. If you